meeting of the Foster Town Council to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have in front of me an email from the Secretary of State's open meeting website indicating that this meeting was posted on June 21st, 5:37 p.m. So we are in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. One quick announcement, I just wanted to point out that the flags of the town are at half-mast, following a presidential proclamation in honor and memory of the folks who were massacred in Orlando. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. Okay, public comment. May I notice Mr. DiPaolo has signed up first, so Mr. DiPaolo, Mr. DiPaolo?
Can you sign up first?
That's all right, go ahead.
Well, I thought Patty signed up first. That's okay. This is the first time I've ever spoken in a concerned citizen segment of a town council meeting. I've never been so motivated to do so in the past. The informational council meeting concerning the tax freeze issue last Tuesday night left me very disappointed in the actions of some of the members on the sitting council. I witnessed Mr. Donovan, a citizen in good standing with the community, raise his hand and wait patiently to be called upon. I was sitting behind him so I could see. He did not speak out of turn, but when his turn finally came and he was recognized by the council president, he began to speak. It was obvious he was skeptical of the council's proposal. When Mr. Donovan had the floor and began to give his views, the council president disagreed with his opinion and interjected and spoke over that citizen in midstream. Mr. Donovan was forced to react to the president's interruption and was, in my opinion, unfairly forced to respond to him. Then a second council person, Ms. Hawes, who was not recognized, sided with the president and also spoke out against the taxpayer while he had the floor and he was speaking. Now it was 2 against 1. At that time, Mr. Donovan informed Ms. Hawes that he wasn't speaking to her. I witnessed, in my opinion, an overreaction on the president's part as he told the taxpayer he was rude and demanded he sit down, and he was not allowed to present his opposing views any further. I have been to countless council meetings and have never seen a taxpayer shut down in mid-sentence like that before. I was also disappointed that Ms. Hawes was not told that she was also rude for disagreeing and interrupting the taxpayer as he spoke. It didn't end there either. In my opinion, the council president scolded the taxpayer for his opposing opinion when he tried to explain why he didn't trust their financial numbers when they determined their need to dismantle the tax freeze. As the taxpayer tried to explain while he was mistrusting, he was again interrupted, spoken over, and told now that he was lying. The taxpayer, still standing in his spot, not being disorderly, not raising his voice because he had none, he had laryngitis or something, and I could hardly hear him. He tried to explain that the original proposal, which was presented to the taxpayers 2 years ago, had a clause to give the power to the council to implement a lien on their home, but never included a clause to allow people who are currently on the tax freeze to be grandfathered in. The taxpayer went on to say that after numerous phone calls from concerned taxpayers the next day, the authors of the original proposal backpedaled and rewrote it. Mr. Donovan was trying to say all this as both the council president and Ms. Hawes spoke over him in a scolding manner. In fact, more than once the council president said he was lying when Mr. Donovan referred to the original document and the original proposal. The taxpayer tried to yell over both of them and remind Ms. Hawes that she wasn't even on the council back then and it was before her time. In the end, The council president took the remainder of the taxpayers' time by giving a mini speech of his own concerning his integrity and I don't know what else, while the taxpayer was left standing there with a folder full of figures he had compiled that he was not allowed to share with the rest of us. Well, I was at that meeting a couple of years ago when the original proposal of the resolution was read, handed out, and put before the council for attempted passage. I remember Mr. Restivo explaining details of the proposal, and I witnessed Mr. Donovan ask Mr. Restivo how his mother was going to be able to afford her home after living on a $700 a month allowance if the proposal was passed. At no time did Mr. Restivo or the town council president correct him and inform us that she or others like her would be grandfathered in or not taken off the freeze. As accused by the council president, I believe Mr. Donovan was not lying when he said the first proposal said nothing about grandfathering in people who were already on it. If the council could remember or had listened to what the taxpayer was saying and let him speak in his entirety, they may have asked him where he was getting his information and he may or may not have produced it. He was not given that chance, so I'm going to. Here's a copy of the original proposed resolution. If interested, please read it and determine if Mr. Donovan was rightfully accused of lying. I read it twice and I find nothing about grandfathering people in who are already living on the tax freeze. In closing, whether it be an affirming or opposing view, I hope I never witness such a disgraceful attempt to stifle a taxpayer when he or she is speaking, especially when they have the right under the council's adopted rules and more importantly, under the First Amendment to do so. Thank you, respectfully, Robert DiPaolo.
Thank you for your comment. Ms. Moreau?
Yes. I just wanted the council to know that Mrs. Simons that was at that meeting the other night, we did speak with her. She opted out of the tax freeze and re-upped under this year's tax freeze, and we saved her $340. So she's very happy.
She was one of the people who actually suffers a pretty significant loss for being on the tax freeze.
And the gentleman who just signed in, Mo, I can't read your last name.
Giovanni.
Mo Giovanni, yes, sir. Do you want to speak under public comment?
Yes, I just want to see if I can get a meeting with the town council about an ongoing problem with barking dogs on Kennedy Road.
Okay, I think we can set a meeting with you tonight because
Yeah, no, that's
it's
fine.
not on the agenda. But
Yeah.
if you'd like to chat with some of us
Yeah,
after the meeting,
that's fine.
or call one of us at home, we can
Yeah,
try
try
to
to
set
set
something.
everybody, not just individuals, so. I already been through the whole town, so I need some answers, because it's just an ongoing problem, it's not stopping. All night long, there's gotta be some kind of noise ordinance or something going on. We've called the police, I don't know how many times, and they can't do anything anymore. It's ridiculous.
Okay. Could you give the town clerk your phone number
Yeah.
and she can distribute it to the council and then we can get in touch with you. Okay, I think we've covered some. Minutes from June 9th?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes from June 9th as presented.
Discussion on the minutes?
Yes, I just have a question for Mr. Restivo. I'm not sure if he knows the answer. As far as the solar tax and the state passing theirs, did they do that? I haven't seen anything in the paper.
They did. The Office of Energy Resources has until November 31st to come up with a uniform method of taxing solar installations. I'm fairly confident this project is done.
Okay, and anything up to that date?
And I think it's based on when they signed the interconnection agreement with National Grid. So if they sign that agreement before December 31st, I think 2016, then they're subject to the old method of taxation.
Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? I will be abstaining, I was not present at that meeting. So motion carries 4-0, one abstention. Warrants, payroll warrant number 49.
Make a motion that we accept payroll warrant number 49 in the amount of $45,171.36.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Payroll warrant number 50.
I make a motion that we accept payroll warrant number 50 in the amount of $31,399.24.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. General warrant number 22.
I make a motion that we accept general warrant number 22 in the amount of $187,673.63.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Monthly reports.
I make a motion that we accept the following monthly reports for May as presented. Building and Zoning Department, Finance Department, Human Services, Planning Department, Police Department, and Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation.
Is there a second? Discussion?
I would like it noted that the Public Works and Tax Assessors reports were not included.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Quarterly reports, we did not receive this from the ambulance coaching, is that correct? Okay, so we'll just carry that, that's not available this evening. Old business, location of Swan Meadow Community Theater outdoor performance stage, so everyone remembers the council authorized them to build on a piece of town property, but did not specify which one. And there was a representative here from Swan Meadow this evening to let us know what they did.
Can I share some?
Sure.
I don't think I made enough copies because I only said how many you made, but. That's got my page missing. Sorry. So our proposal, our desired site that we wanted to put, if you look at the very last page, that's the picture that has kind of the outdoor theater that we were hoping to put, something like that. And we gotten a $15,000 grant from the Rhode Island Foundation to do it with. Our desired location is Route 94, where the new rec area is going to be, but we found out that the money has to be used by December 31st of this year, and obviously that site's not probably going to be ready by then, so we've been trying to look at some of the other properties that the town already has that maybe would work. And so what you see on the first page with all the pretty colors is the list of the proposed, let's say, Foster Fairgrounds, Woody Loudon, Green Pond, Nike site, and the Route 94 site, listing those things that we want or would like to have, such as, obviously, accessibility would be good, electricity, the space is actually available already, parking, restrooms, and is it ready to go at this point or not? And based on our chart right now, of course, Foster Fairgrounds is the most ready to go. Obviously, that space is already well utilized. So on, specifically on the page that shows Foster Fairgrounds. Yes, okay. So the Foster Fairgrounds is actually, the meeting house is the building that's kind of straight down from the yellow. The yellow was our initial idea, but we realized that it would be cutting into too much of the parking lot and other areas that just were utilized during times that we might have needed the event space. So we were thinking that it would be better to move it to where I've drawn in kind of a little square. It's not obviously to scale or accurate exactly, but the tree that's behind the meeting house and between the tree and the blacksmith shop, that tree is, I guess, my understanding, sort of dying anyway, and maybe that area facing up towards the parking area behind the town hall, town meeting house, might work as a good possibility. The issue we found, or think we find with Woody Loudon, because that was initially, we thought Woody Loudon would be the better site, but it would need so much clearing. It doesn't actually have electricity running down to that site yet. So there was also things about the limited parking there as far as to do anything. So it was not considered our best choice. And the Nike site, again, we discussed that one of the things we wanted was accessibility. We wanted people to feel like they could come and find the place, and we had people who we had told to go look at the Nike site, and they turned around halfway down that long road because they thought they must be lost or in the wrong place or something. So we thought at night that might not be a draw. People might actually start down the road and give up. And also there were other issues. We're not clear on what the water is like there. And, even the possibility of ground contamination if kids were sitting on the ground or, plus bathrooms are a big thing, obviously, but portalettes will work if you have the area to put them, but, there's not a lot of places that actually have bathrooms anyway, so that may be more of a future, location. So, I guess, the Green Pond site, there was too few amenities, there were too many problems with that particular site to bring it up to speed quickly enough. So that's just what we have at the moment, that our desire at this point to get it done and get it done by our current deadline. Our first choice would be the Foster Fairgrounds. Second choice would be Woody Loudon, but again, that would take quite a bit of work between now and December 31st. Does anybody end up getting one? Did you want the phone since
I have an extra page, so I don't know what I'm missing 2 pages now.
So you've detailed all of these and said you're interested in fairgrounds, Woody Loudon. Is Swamp Meadow to the point where you're ready to make a formal request for a location? Is that what you're here, are you here tonight to formally request permission to build at one of these locations?
Yes.
Okay, you have the authority from your board of directors to do that.
Honestly, I didn't ask that question. I just knew that we needed to get this out there and get this at least to you guys, so you know what we run into, is that this is an issue that we have a time constraint. We obviously will need somebody to do the building, even we kick in, but
We can't move forward till we know
where
where
we
we
are.
are.
So you're not requesting 2 locations, you're requesting one location?
Yes, just one, yeah.
And your preference is the
At
fairgrounds?
this moment, we moved to saying that our best bet for getting it done in the time frame that we have would be the fairgrounds.
So what is the pleasure of the council? Does anyone have any questions?
I do have a few. Sure. Looking at the fairground, and I know a lot of that is used with the Forster Fair and everything's set up there, and that's where they have the sheep on and they do all the tent and everything there. That would completely take quite a bit of area away from them and their ability, and they're packed in pretty tight now. Then looking at your next one, Woody Loudon, I do see the area where the land is cleared, and there's no power back there, where the land needs to be cleared, again.
Right, plus there's the issue of the fact that there's very limited parking actually there.
And then, the next one, Green Pond, I'm assuming that's Green Acres.
I was looking at that too. I think so too.
Okay.
All right, that also pretty much my backyard. That doesn't have any restaurants, but you did mention that Porta Johns are a real problem at first, but putting a septic system in for something like that wouldn't be that large anyway. But the Porta Johns would work. I know it is opened up and cleared. The parking is great there. Electricity is not a bad hurdle on a situation like that at all. Literally within one day, you can have a service line going to where you're gonna put your power.
A fairly heavy draw power for tech stuff, you know, for lights
It's
and.
14, there's 3 phase. There's actually 3 phase coming down Moosa Valley, and I can guarantee you, there's nothing they're ever gonna put there that'll utilize 14,000 volt lines on the top of that. So electricity to your building, one day. There's no trees to clear, no nothing. It's a 2-foot trench to the side of the building. Simple as that, with 3-inch conduit. I do it all the time. So that's really not a very hard hurdle. It's less of a hurdle than Woody Loudon because you would have to do the land clearing, the stumping, and the grading, and then run a 3-inch utility line from the building down off of the power that's there. At Green Acres, you'd be grabbing it right from the pole. So, and you'd have a service request number you'd be asking for. You can stop that at any time, and it's good. So I really don't think Green Acres is a challenge as it is. I think especially if Porta Johns can work in the interim, while it's very simple to get a septic design done, it wouldn't be a large one to be installed in bathrooms. So I don't think Green Acres is, Green Pond as you call it, is as hard as you think, especially if electric was a big issue, and it's really, electric is not a big issue.
And I have to admit, because I'm not from the area, but I don't know where it is in terms of, was
Go ahead.
was accessibility one of the ones on that one as far as like, you know, would people from out of town come there?
I think absolutely with the Grange, the library,
Oh,
the
really?
church,
Oh,
it may bring back more broad to what it used to be years ago when I was a kid. But looking at it and the challenges, I'm quite familiar with the Nike site. I'm one of the children that drank the water there, and went to school there.
you're talking.
I can tell you more of the issue with the water there. That does have a brand new septic system. There is some room in it, but it wasn't designed. It was designed very small for the actual people in the building because it's still being used by the school department. So that system was designed for that, so it wouldn't take on a lot more than what it's designed for. So you would probably have to either go Porta Johns or add to that. The other problem with that is you have neighbors that kind of circumference around that.
Right.
That may not be too receptive to it. So, and then of course the 94, it's not even close to being there, and it looks like you're gonna put it encroaching onto the soccer field, which may draw conflict with people that like soccer.
It's actually, I mean, the building itself probably would not, but the point for us is that our tech crew sits in front of wherever that building is facing, so we want them to be, you know, like, if you're on stage, then as a tech crew person, I would be out here somewhere so that I'm getting the advantage of, okay, you know, I need to adjust the sound or, you know, that type of
And
thing.
the Green Acres, I would actually volunteer to do the trench and bring the power to the building. You guys buy the conduit, call for the service request number, and get the conduit and the sand in, and I could actually dig that. I know I can do it in a day, no problem, so. And I'm not trying to promote that, I'm just looking at all of them, knowing, of course, the fairgrounds, you may run into problems because that, every square inch of that is used multiple times, so you may have some pushback on that. Woody Loudon area went over, like you said, 94, so I personally think the challenges are less than, and you got room to grow, that's another important thing, you got plenty of room to grow at Green Acres, a lot of room to grow. So, and it would probably also be utilized by the church and stuff when they have their, they actually have summer concerts and
Yeah,
stuff
they do.
there, so. And you have the library across the street also, so. I think Green Acres would be the preferable one. So,
Go ahead.
Where on Green Acres? I'm trying to.
Remember where the
visualize-
changing booths used to be?
Yeah,
When we were kids, we used to go into the right, they had
yeah,
the old camp buildings right there.
Yeah.
You could put them in right there, behind the cemetery,
okay.
but to the right of the pond, and I would leave you everything.
That water that goes through. there
No,
would
that's
be-
to get around the back of the pond. Right behind the cemetery and hook to the right, there's that whole green lawn there. It could go there facing towards the church, and you got all the room, and you could also put it on the left behind the pine trees, behind the church
Yeah.
too.
That's
To
what
right
I
and
was
left.
thinking.
Yeah, either or, but I think to the right is more flatter and easier, and you could use all the
I'm
parking.
not
lot.
opposed, I just wanted to
Yeah,
get in
no,
my head.
And there's plenty of room to grow there too whereas you wouldn't be growing at the Forster Fairgrounds and.
Yeah, we had that conversation. It wasn't our first choice.
What part of the church owns that? 'Cause
They only over the
something
fence
too.
and the liners, that is it.
Have members of your board visited the various sites?
Yes. Yeah. I've been to most of them, just not, I didn't know where that one was.
And again, the electrical is not a challenge at all. The hardest part is getting the service request number from the National Grid, dealing with Verizon back and forth. But
Yeah, I don't think septic, you had mentioned septic, I don't think that's an issue, because I don't think that that was even in the proposal that we were going to,
It's not part of the
that we were gonna
15,000.
put septic in anywhere, so I
you
think,
would have room to grow at Green Acres to do that. If you
Yeah.
wanted, that's another point in the future.
yeah.
You would have room to grow.
I don't think, I mean, I think if we ended up having any events, we would end up just paying for more porta johns like we do now at this point. Green Acres is beautiful. It wouldn't be my first choice for a couple reasons. One is because of its location.
Same thing
It's-
with Woody
it's-
Loudon.
It's
is-
not centered. I know, Woody Loudon is not my first choice either. But it's not very central, and I think that that would be a little bit of a deterrent. The water, to me, is also a deterrent. When you have kids, if you're doing a performance, it's just a liability issue, from my standpoint. Just looking at kids, if they're not being watched, there were just, 2 drownings this past week, just in pools where they are supervised. As far as the town grounds, I understand, I mean, I've been to the town fair for years and years, and I do know how crowded it gets. However, that could be incorporated into the use. It's not like it couldn't be used during the town fair. I don't know how, how it would be used, whether, I mean, right now, I know that Swamp Meadow has a booth. We pay for a double booth under the tent. I know that down that row, down the driveway, they have vendors, whether they would put some vendors in there or whatever. So I don't think that that would be unusable space during the fair. I think that there's a way that that could actually be incorporated into the use of the fairgrounds during the old home days.
Have you spoken to them? Because like when they did when the
haven't.
blacksmith shop and everything got moved up, everything really goes in there. They kind of run it by them, so they're in the loop. I think before we say go ahead and force the fairgrounds, I would absolutely like to see the committee realize how this would encumber and work in and around that with them. I mean, we've given them that courtesy on almost everything over there, even though it is the town's property. We've always ran everything through them, whether it was the moving the blacksmith shop, and even when we were discussing moving this jailhouse up next to the blacksmith shop, we had run it by them, and they didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think it's certainly worth a conversation with them.
I had a feeling that somebody was going to be doing that.
Before any decisions were actually made, but I do think that there's a way to incorporate it into the fairgrounds, and it can be a beautiful building that can be an asset to the town.
I have to admit, my first reaction was, especially where I saw the location on the fairgrounds, was that I didn't like that option, because it seemed so concentrated with the other buildings, and I thought the same thing about Fosterville Home Days. That's a very heavy trafficked area, especially for a building that I think practically maybe at least 6 months out of the year wouldn't really be actively used. But I would wonder, the more I think about it, the more it seems that it might be a really nice thing to have on the fairgrounds, just maybe not in this location, in a more discrete area where, I mean, even here, it doesn't seem like there's much of a lawn out in front of the stage where people could be sitting.
It would be facing towards the field.
Oh, so the back of it would face?
Yeah, you know where the roads, like there's the road that goes behind the townhouse and then the road that goes to DPW? There's a tree right there right now in that corner. So it would be kind of like the back of it would be that way with it facing that way. We actually, originally when we were talking about the town grounds, were hoping maybe behind the townhouse itself, between like the townhouse and the supper shed. But I guess the well is in that area, so that was not an option. We were trying to.
Yeah, you also have a possible police station placement going over there
Yeah.
too.
So, you know, we were just trying to look at what might be another possibility. And so that was just one of the things that was thrown out as a possibility.
I'm looking at it from an animal 4-H, and the sheep barn is right there. And the pig,
It's odd, yeah.
well, maybe I'm looking at this wrong then, but I can see the roof there, right where it's proposed. I believe it's the sheep barn or it's the pig.
Oh, so they had it over
Oh,
there.
not the, there's a yellow one, but there's also, there should be a drawn-in square.
Red.
I don't have a drawn in square, I have a yellow one.
Oh, okay, yes, then you're
So
right.
it's
The one you're looking at is right where the sheep
I'm
barn is.
thinking you don't
It's to
want
the
that.
right of that, or to the left of that.
Yeah, sorry, it's, yeah.
That's where they have a little short.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's because I'm thinking that gets a little conjecture, you know.
Yeah, a little smelly.
Yeah.
No, that one actually, part of the problem was the fact that it would go into the parking area that we were facing.
Yes, Mr. Savassi.
One, shouldn't this go by the planning board first? That's one. Two, I don't know how you would make this assessment tonight, on the information you have. There is another site. It's not as desirable as the townhouse and ones they haven't mentioned, whether you would want it at the grade school. The right-hand parking lot where the big rocks are, right behind that facing the new grass field, would take very little space away from the school, and you have parking. So, I really, you have two people that come in front of you with their assessment of what you should do and ask you to vote on this. You actually, or the planning board, should go out and make this assessment. I don't know how you're having this conversation.
Well, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, well,
We have to start somewhere, and I agree, it seems like we're probably not in a position to take a vote this evening.
I'm certainly not prepared to.
So, I think, based on the comments that I've heard, perhaps you should connect with whoever from the Old Home Days Committee is going to do, so we can hear their input, we can hear what they have to say, before we look at that, permission for that.
Do you want us to talk to them, or are you gonna talk to them? Because the other thing
I think
is, with
it-
Ron's suggestion is the school's a possibility, that was something that we can take back to, and just say, you know, what do people think about that too?
I think initially that you should be doing it, swap that with people should be doing it. Talk to the Old Home Days Committee, talk to the school, talk about the neighbors, you know, all the different things that we talked about this evening. And then come back with a formal request. If that formal request is at the fairground, then at that night, we're either gonna wanna have someone from the Old Home Days Committee here, or a letter from them, you know, saying that whatever their opinion is about the project.
May I ask a question? I might have missed part of it. Did you get the grant?
Yes.
Okay,
We
congratulations.
have the grant, we have 6 months to use it up.
I heard that part, but I wasn't sure whether you were jumping the gun saying, okay, we're on the 6 months in case we get it.
We have the money, we're ready to spend it.
Ready to go.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you would do that, and then have someone contact me and let me know when you would like to come back and bring us the additional information. Does anyone have any further questions? Anything further from Swamp Meadow folks? Go to your question.
Maybe about the grant. Sometimes the grant, so you have to start the work this year, but so long as starts a project this year, the grant will stay, the whole amount will be still given for the whole project, even if it goes into the next year. How is your grant? Is it this, normally you have to use it?
They were pretty hard about the end being completed by December 31st, unless there was an emergency. So we could go to them if there was an emergency and ask for an extension, but otherwise.
They want the money.
Okay. Just awesome.
What is the size of the building? What are the dimensions?
Do you have an idea, or are there dimensions here? We have a picture.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering what the
I think that was
size is kind of
part on like
important.
the bids that we got type of thing, so I don't, I think, is it 40 by 40?
I don't know.
I
They're
have
probably
this-
gonna wanna know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Kayla got drafted into coming here tonight. She's like the fourth person in line. We're trying to find somebody to come, so.
So I'm not.
In all fairness, to her, she doesn't have all the
I
answers.
didn't have all those answers, but I can get them.
Okay, so why don't you go back and do that, meet with the board, get the dimensions, speak to Old Home Days folks, look at Green Acres, do all those various things, and then we'll get you back on the agenda in the near future.
You don't think the planning board should have anything to do with this?
I think at least the planner.
Well, certainly the planner. I don't know that it's necessary, Ron, it's on municipal property, so I don't know if it's
Maybe
required.
the planner has an idea of how to use municipal.
Why don't you touch base with the planner and see what she has to say? Okay, is that everything? All right, so we'll carry that as a future agenda item. New business, additions and abatements, we have some abatements.
I make a motion that we honor the request of the tax assessor to make the following changes to the 2015 tax roll for a total abatements in the amount of $464.82.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Bid award, audit and agreed on procedures. Kelly, do you have any information for us?
So we opened bids on Tuesday, and I evaluated them Tuesday a little bit, and then again today, I made some phone calls for references. You can see on Appendix 2, I started to fill that out. It has to go to the Auditor General for his approval once we decide what we're going to do. My first choice is Bacon and Company. The second would be NATO, if you look at the scoring sheet on the second page. And the third, I almost disqualify because they're not a Rhode Island company. They don't have any audits currently in Rhode Island, and they're constantly, their price is extremely low. They don't do the work necessarily on site, and the two last Rhode Island towns that they did couldn't give me a positive recommendation. We'll say that lightly. And so, although I did score them with the others, really, it was, the other two were the main consideration. When I spoke to NATO, because I actually called him today, my main issue with them, which is not a significant, it's an issue, but I mean, they're a local firm. They don't do many audits, they do two currently, and neither of them have a school. Their audit hours that they budgeted for the audit were 207 as opposed to 354 for the firm who currently does it, who knows how much work is involved, etc. So I called them, I asked them several questions. They appreciated my phone call. I did bring this up as one of the issues. And he did indicate that they probably underbid the hours. So he fully understood if we went with Bacon and Company. He said, I'm not giving away work, but I want to be honest. And that's one of the reasons. Bacon & Company has audited several audits through municipalities throughout Rhode Island, not just small ones or local or to, many cities, towns. We use them as points of reference for some of our policy changes, which we can always get some sort of information from them because they've audited so many communities that they have a broader level of experience. So they can always point us in the right direction as to who to ask for certain policies and procedures. They have a lot of experience. They have their own department specifically for auditing, not just something they do in their off-season when they're not doing taxes and tax-related items. So for those reasons, and the fact that it's a $3,000 over 3 years, so it's $1,000 a year, significant amount of work to change auditors, significant, which they, NATO, when I spoke to them, recognized as well. So for that reason, I put them number one. The score sheet is attached. Both of these items will be sent to the Auditor General for their approval.
So your recommendation is for us to award the audit
To Bacon &
recon
Company.
procedures to Bacon & Company for
Yes.
$73,500.
Right.
What's the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Bid award recreation field, we have a letter from the DPW director asking for us to table this evening, so that he has some additional time to check references and qualifications. Is there a motion to table? For Gordon, so Chairman Gordon. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. That is a future agenda item. Request the use of town grounds, volunteer appreciation day, Foster Clergy Association. So we have a letter from Carol Morrow. I am writing on behalf of the Foster Clergy Association to request the use of the town fairgrounds, site shed area, on Saturday, September 10, from 12 to 8 p.m. for an event scheduled from 3 to 6. Foster Clergy Association would like to host an appreciation event to honor the volunteers who spend their time supporting our town. This will include residents and their families who serve on town boards and committees and are unpaid for their service. The individual churches that make up the FCA have liability insurance that will cover them for this off-site event. Certificates of insurance will be provided to the town prior to the event if approval is granted for use of the grounds. We'll also be making arrangements for a porta pot on the site. Activities for the day will include music, food, and games, no alcoholic beverages. What's the pleasure of the council?
I make a motion that we approve the use of the fairgrounds for the Foster Clergy Association on September 10th from 12 to 8 p.m. for the event of appreciation for the volunteers.
Second? Discussion? The space is available to you?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Request the use of town grounds, Department of Human Services fundraiser. Another letter from Carol Morrow, dear council members. I am writing to request use of the town fairgrounds on Saturday, September 17th from 9 to 3 p.m. for a DHS food pantry fundraiser. This would be in coordination with Foster's Recreation Community Yard Sale. The fundraising event is a classic and antique car show coordinated by RI Cowboy Cruisers. They have hosted 3 events in Foster in May and June and collect non-perishable food items from the participants of the show. This is the first year that Foster DHS Food Pantry has been a recipient of their donations. RI Cowboy Cruisers carries private liability insurance and will supply that documentation prior to the event. I've been in contact with the rec committee. They are happy to have this event coincide with the community yard center. The rec committee will be making arrangements for temporary sanitary facilities for the day's events. What's the pleasure of the council? Second?
Second.
Discussion? Space is available, Jim?
Space is available, and today I did receive an email from Tim Stoukamp from Recreation asking for that yard sale on the same day.
So we'll put that on the next agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Poll petition, 37A Balcom Road. We have a recommendation from the DPW director for approval of the new pole, T37.75 at number 37-75 Balcom Road. Pleasure of the council.
Make a motion to approve the pole placement on Balcom Road as requested by the DPW director.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
Yes, I happened to have a chance to speak to the owner,
Yes.
and she had nothing but nice things to say about the town hall people and answering all her questions, and when her husband's confused, she's very pleased. She's been doing this for Tucket for many years and found what refreshing. I thought I'd let you know that. Nice work.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Poll petition, poll 43-84 South County Road. We have a recommendation from the DPW director to install a new pole at that location. What's the pleasure? Of the council?
Make a motion to approve the pole placement on South County Road as recommended by the DPW director.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Unused comp time carryover request, town hall employees. A letter from the treasurer indicating employees Jim Candelo, $35, Patricia Moreau, $48.25, Susan Sprague, $35. A request to carry over their comp time to be used no later than October 31st, 2016. It's the pleasure of the council.
I make a motion that we approve this request.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Letter of agreement between the town of Foster and the American Red Cross. This was brought forward by Linda Day, Assistant EMA Director, who identified that our contract with the Red Cross is due for renewal. It had expired.
Long time ago.
And this is the contracts that the Red Cross sent to us. They call it a letter of agreement.
Has the solicitor had a chance to review
I
this?
did, and I thought it was excellent, and I happen to be a fan of the Red Cross because their work goes back many, many years. And I've had family members aided in other places by them. But the agreement, yeah, they good agreement.
The agreement is essentially, if you have an agreement in place and the town has a disaster, the Red Cross will come and assist us and then pay for it.
I did read it,
And without the
but
agreement,
I don't have the legal expertise.
without the agreement, we're on
It's
our
the
own.
type of agreement that you don't amend. It's just, do you want our help, yes or no? And I don't see anything detrimental to the town. I wouldn't think you want to refuse it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this letter of agreement? Discussion?
You want a session on that?
I'm sorry. I do, I want a second on it.
I'll second.
Discussion. Good.
I had today the meeting with the Red Cross person in charge of this agreement, or in charge of general, all the setup and everything. And after we signed, the town council signed this agreement, we will assess all the shelters, the Payne School and the 3 fire stations, the suitable shelters, and make all 4 locations a request approved shelter. But everything is out of date what they have there. I think the last assessment was done 2006 or 2008 or something like this. So after this one is done, that we get all rolling on, that we get all up to date with our shelter situation here in town. But theoretically, also we spoke today about the other situation, there are actually only 3 shelters in the whole state of Rhode Island that we set up. And ours, for our region, the big shelter will be permanent. But it's very close to Foster is. And we came up with the idea today, actually, that's the 4 emergency directors from the Gloucester, Situate, Foster, and Smithfield coming together. And maybe they want to try to set up a 11th shelter at a high school at Gloucester, what will central there for all the 4 towns, and even maybe even Boroville and Pasco. That's what you spoke about too today, just to inform the council about this one.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do you have an original copy of this?
You should have 2.
Well, there's no question from the one we have.
Get these signed and Okay, that brings us to our public hearing portion of the meeting. We have public hearings on the Charter Review Commission recommendations for charter amendments, and there's also one on the Planning Board recommendation for charter amendment. So I'm going to open the public hearing on the Charter Review Commission recommendations for charter amendment. Public hearing is open. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different charter amendment proposals individually, and then based upon those 8, there are a couple of additional things that would happen as a result of the previous 8 things passing. Sort of tightening up and making the language consistent throughout. So we'll deal with the Charter Review Commission recommendations first. What I'd like to try to do is to talk about them one at a time, individually, via those opposed, via those in favor. And I'll just go right down the list, and if someone thinks of something about a previous one, I'll certainly recognize you when you speak, and we'll try to stick with one at a time and flesh that one out. So the first recommendation for charter amendment is Article 5, School Committee, Section 5.01, Membership, Term of Office, and Vacancies. The rationale for this change is changes the school committee terms from 2-year terms to 4-year terms. That would put Foster on equal footing with the 4-year terms that the Gloucester School Committee members have. The terms would be staggered to ensure consistency and continuity of purpose on the school committee, in keeping with the staggered terms on other boards, planning boards, zoning board, conservation commission, and land trust. So we do have, up on the front table here, we do have a document that shows each individual change. The current existing language of the charter is on the right. The newly proposed language is on the left and highlighted in yellow. Anyone would like to grab a copy of those and follow along? So the first one we'll discuss is the school committee terms. This is making the terms of the school committee members 4 years instead of 2 years. Does anyone would like to speak in opposition to this? Mr. Walden.
I think it would be inadvisable to put somebody in a 4-year term without some methods of removing them from office should you become dissatisfied. 4 years is a long term to be settled with someone not doing the proper job.
Okay. Other in opposition? Mrs. Savasio?
We heard from Mr. Walden numerous times and discussed recalls. Lynn isn't here, but she did numerous, brought in numerous methods of recall. We don't have a recall proposal, but I don't know how you'd be dissatisfied with one school committee member in Payne School. Two, if they were spending unreasonable amount of monies, the council has the right to recommend a different proposal. At the region, this is strictly for the region. There are 9 members, and Gloucester always has 3 members with experience. If 3 members don't run, they have 3 members who start right off the ground. They know what's going on. We've had numerous school committees that 3 were completely changed, and it takes you at least a year to 2 years to learn what you're doing. So Mr. Walden's fears, he can have his opinion, but it's more for the good of the community than it has anything to do against. And I do believe our school committee, 9, we have common purpose, and that is education for children. There may be disagreements, but there's very few political disagreements. There may be philosophical disagreements. So I don't know how you could be dissatisfied with one member of the school committee. And also, if it works, this is the 3rd time I brought this proposal forward, and it isn't for me in charter reviews. If it doesn't work, then you could change it. If it does work, you may want to do 4-year terms for the council like Gloucester does. So every 2 years is a burden pretty much for a volunteer office, and it's pretty volunteer. So Mr. Walden brought these discussions forward. I think it was fully, Bob's here. I think this was a unanimous vote to move this forward. I didn't bring that. So, and we did hear from Mr. Walden. I will tell you, this is the first charter review committee of 3 that allowed people to talk all the time. So he was fully heard at the charter review committee.
Any other comments in opposition? Mr. Karen?
I don't have opposition to the 4-year term so much. I have a concern with the staggered terms with only 1 member being elected, every other election and 2 on the other. With only 3 members, it seems, to only have 1 person elected to the committee. I don't know how that would work out. I think if, the terms were not staggered, it might be better. I don't know what the reason is for the staggered terms is.
So let me answer that. Sure. It's to always have at least 1 person from Foster who has experience on the school committee and help the other 2 people break into being a school committee member. So non-staggered goes back to the way it is now. There could be 3 members wiped out. So it's more for continuity of experience and knowledge. That's why this proposal was brought forward.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else in opposition? Anyone like to speak in favor? Okay. Let's move on to the next item, Article 6, appointed officers and town sergeant, section 6.01, Director of Human Services. The changes that are being made here, which you see in yellow, is replacing wording that is outdated, reflecting greater sensitivity to the population served. So you can see our existing wording refers to needy, dependent, and defective persons. And the new language is low and moderate income household opposition? Anyone in favor?
May I thank that no one's spoken in opposition to that? That term's been, thank you.
Any comments at all? Move on to the next one. Article 6, appointed officers and town sergeant, section 6.11, planning official. The language changes accurately reflect the responsibilities and practices of the planning department as it currently exists. You can see the yellow wording, planning official shall act as administrative officer and staff to the planning board and zoning board of review, shall be responsible for maintenance of zoning ordinance, land development, subdivision regulations, and a comprehensive community plan, annual preparation of the capital program, the small cities community development block grant, and other applicable planning grants, in conjunction with the treasurer, the road and bridge plan, in conjunction with the director of public works, maintenance of the geographic information system and mapping. Any final administrative decision made by the planning official is appealable to the zoning board of review in its capacity as zoning board of appeal.
Excuse me, John, can I introduce something?
You may.
On further discussion has been made that the last line and a half, it says in its capacity as the zoning board of appeals, we were striking, I just, in the whole road installation, I didn't get to making the changes. So I apologize for that.
So
It's just
how
that
should the
it would end
sentence
up,
read?
any final administrative decision made by the planning official is appealable to the zoning board of review. The rest of it is kind of understood.
And the reason I suggested that is in some city or town charters and law, it is the zoning board of appeals. Ours is the zoning board of review that takes appeals as it sits. That's why it's of review. I didn't want to confuse the issue and have a person out of town looking for the body that doesn't exist by our charter. So it's what they do, but they're called, ours is called zoning board of review.
So this newly proposed word reflects responsibilities and practices of the planning department as it's currently constituted. Anyone wish to speak in opposition?
I just have a question to this one. How is it with all the plans? They are like the hazard mitigation plan, the emergency operation plans from the town, they're also falling in through the planning office.
And, okay, it says and other applicable planning grants.
Planning grants,
Yes.
but not the plans themselves.
Just say in such other duties as may be
Yeah.
described by law or town ordinance, the town council or planning board.
It's also long range and short range planning. That's already.
It's the charter description for me, reading it legally. It doesn't have to say it all, but it should say a whole lot more than it did. That is a constant function. And as we have a part-time planner most of the time, you don't want to scare a potential planner at some point either,
No, just asking.
because that becomes a job description.
No, just asking.
Is there a description for the EMA director in the charter?
In the charter?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't think so, I think it's in the job description.
Okay, and there, does it spell out what Gunter's concerns are? I don't have one.
If the personnel policy, does it spell out everything that the planner does?
No, the EMA director. I think it does. I think it might include that there, just
Yeah,
because
it
you always
includes updating, keeping the plans in order.
right.
Yes, and this is in the EMA director's job description, but it's
Okay.
also part of the town plan to do the plans to work in conjunction.
Since the council assigns that anyway, or state law or ordinance could assign that, and there is a chance of a catch-all on the bottom.
It's a state law that you have to have some hazard mitigation plan and emergency operation.
Any other comments in opposition? Anyone wish to speak in favor?
I think in favor is the committee bringing it forward.
Okay.
May I ask how the current planner feels about this wording? Is it comparable to what you do already?
Yes.
It's not adding more to your plate?
Didn't scare you?
Thank you.
I just like to speak again with it.
Okay, Joe?
That's all, I just think, there's a lot of things that were out, and Juliana had reviewed it, and, just thought that it could describe the position. I think it's very good, and it should go forward.
Still in favor, okay. Okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Article 7, Public Works Department, Section 7.02, Director, and Section 7.03, Compensation. This change provides for a 3-year contract for the DPW Director beginning January 2017, and will provide more stability and continuity in the DPW department. So the first change you see there refers to the contract, and the second, compensation negotiated by contract, which shall not be reduced during the period of it. Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
I'll take this on in favor, okay? I didn't bring this forward, and to tell you the truth, I can't remember what I voted for it. But there was a lot of discussion about this. I do want to say this charter review committee did more work than the last two that I'm familiar with. Since I've been in the community, I think one day I counted 20 or more highway directors. Walter May being the longest serving. Constantly I bring forward that maybe we should hire a civil engineer. The idea that every 2 years a council gets elected and you hook a highway director and put in somebody's friend, and you have interims leave and all kinds of other things. I think the 3-year contract has worked out for Kelly. We've kept, see, I'm gonna give you a compliment, Kelly. We've kept a good treasurer.
She doesn't have a contract.
She doesn't have a contract.
That's just luck. Hold on. It's definitely worked out for the chief. And I think, don't we have another 3-year contract, John?
Just the chief.
Just the chief. I think that, I'll do it this way. I think Kelly, we should be giving 3-year contracts to hire qualified people and keep them, all right? And versus treasurer, we used to turn over treasurers every 2 years, okay? We're moving way far away from that as a community, hiring people that we know in the community. There used to be people come here and say, we have many qualified people in the community, and they get on something and they screw everything up. So this 3-year contract moving forward is to secure a qualified person.
Any other comments, questions?
Just a question. In the first sentence, it says, there shall be a working properly licensed. That's kind of a broad statement, properly licensed. I don't really get the concept or what's the meaning of properly licensed, how that would be.
My understanding is that refers to the CDL license that they're required to have to drive the big equipment.
Should it be more detailed?
I can answer that. Here's the thing, you have to understand, remember, that we're talking about a charter here, not a job description. Once you put it in here, you will not change this for a very long time. So if you put 3 licenses and you can't draw anybody with those licenses, you can't have a DPW director, okay? So this is a basic document. That's a must. You cannot go below this. This is your floor. When you, or the council chooses to draw a job description to solicit, then they can say, we want a civil engineer preferably, or we want this preferably, but you may not be able to get it. But if you put that in the Bible here, you're gonna have a problem. So the place for that is in the job description and/or in the ad when they solicit, if they have to solicit a new one. This is, you know, a basic document that needs to have that play in it, like a constitution.
Don, one other thing, I'm sure we've hired, that I can remember, 2 highway directors that didn't have the CDL and promised us the whole time they were gonna get the CDL, and by the time we got rid of them, they had never gotten the CDL, so the proper license doesn't need to be in there.
Further comments? Okay. Article 9, Planning and Zoning, Section 9.05, Conservation Commission. This new language more accurately reflects the current roles, responsibilities, programs, and topics of study covered by the Conservation Commission. Specifically, it adds recycling programs and practices, energy and resource conservation, and renewable energy to the description of the duties of the Conservation Commission. Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone wish to speak in favor?
I guess I'll take the opportunity to speak in favor.
Volunteer?
I think that it's great to add these particular new functions to the Conservation Commission, given their becoming of increasing importance across the board. It's good that we have them in there. That it's now the official charge of the Conservation Commission to weigh in on the topic.
Anyone else? Any questions at all?
Actually, just on this, Brandon Moore came forward to us with this, he's on the Conservation Commission. He brought this forward saying these are things they already do, so they just want it properly described in the chart. That's how this came about, a few words.
Okay, if nothing else, I'm going to move. Article 10, Financial Procedures, Section 10.02, Financial Town Meeting. Rationale of this change would streamline the voting process and preserve anonymity. Essentially, the wording in the yellow requires whenever there is a ballot vote at any financial town meeting, the voting shall consist of anonymous voting by means of printed or written ballots, by means of voting machines to preserve the privacy of any Gloucester residents. Any resident who wishes to cast a vote on the ballot vote must cast a ballot indicating yes or no. If the individual chooses not to cast a ballot, they will not have voted on the issue and will not be counted in the total number of voters participating in that particular vote. Only the total number of cast ballots indicating yes or no will be considered in determining the outcome of said vote. Anyone wish to speak in opposition to this? Anyone in favor?
I'd like to address this, John.
Okay, Mr. Sabasio?
The way we've been doing it historically in the community, there's no way for anybody to abstain from voting because they don't have an opinion. All right, so our present moderator gave the best description I've ever heard in the last meeting. However, moderators have taken upon themselves to assign the abstentions to the no vote. When we had our last financial meeting at the region, we asked our attorney, and this is the ruling he gave us, that only votes counted are the people who got up and cast a vote. So this falls right in line with the ruling we got, and it was brought forward to us by numerous citizens about this. I think everybody on the committee had somebody call them about this. So this is the proper way to deal with this, because the moderator, any night, the way it is, can say, those people who don't vote is a yes vote. Because that night, he can do whatever he wants. So the only votes that should be counted are the yeses and the nos. People who want to abstain then have a way to do it, sit in their chair.
Other comments in favor? Anyone?
I'm in favor of this because I thought the last couple of financial town meetings, when the way the moderator chose to tell people that if they stayed in their seat, it was a no vote automatically. They didn't vote yes or no, they voted, and the last financial town meeting, we didn't even know what the count was when it started. So this gives more control, and I thought it was very unfair the way the votes have been going, the way the moderator was presenting it at the meeting, when we had no idea how many people were at that financial town meeting from when we started the meeting to when we started taking votes. They said there were a certain number of votes in the room, but we don't know if that's what we started with. So I'm in favor of this, totally in favor of this. I think everybody should, if they're gonna vote, and they're gonna vote by a ballot, they should get up, put their vote in, yes or no, and then sit down. If you don't wanna vote, that's your choice, just stay in your seat. Because I think the yay and nay votes are very archaic when you're yelling it out, because some people have a louder voice than others, and it sounds like more people voted than they did.
Mr. DePaul?
After that said meeting, the Board of Canvassers accepted 2 formal written complaints from taxpayers, which I forwarded to our solicitor at the time. And then we had to have a canvassers hearing, which we did, to hear the complaints. The canvassers couldn't act on it at the time. The Board of Elections told us that we needed to make provisions in the charter if anything needed to be changed, but we couldn't change anything or do anything on our own. Either way, we had no jurisdiction over it.
And I can add that being the solicitor here, and I'm speaking as a solicitor, and being the solicitor at the financial town meeting, that this moderator that I've worked with refuses my advice and believes that he controls that meeting. And I don't think it's out of line to say I've seen it controlled in a political manner and not in a legal manner or in a neutral manner, which is what the moderator's job is. So it's not being done the way it should be by charter, in my opinion. My opinions are refused the last couple of meetings when it's necessary. And I think the only way to change it, as I've said to the complaining parties, would be to change it this way in the charter so that whoever the moderator is has to follow at least this basic rule and can still run the business of the meeting the way they choose. And then you will see if once this passes, there's a housekeeping change being very specific that in the moderator's duties, 10.02 must be followed so that they don't argue. Whoever the moderator is doesn't argue, they still have control of that one issue.
Mr. Rogers, did I see your hand?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say pretty much what Patty said. I'm in favor of this. It'll avoid a lot of confusion.
Any further comments? Mr. Carey?
I would just like to state that for other reasons other than this, there are a couple of the times I go to all the financial town meetings, and a lot of times when they say that, there's a lot of confusion from members of the audience. And then some people feel that if they go up, everybody's gonna think they're voting yes, and they're uncomfortable, and it kind of takes away the reason for paper ballots or the private, because, you know, people don't like to stand up, and if they see people sitting and everybody's looking at them, it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's a controversial subject, so I think, you know, to make the yes or no, they don't think that everybody up there is voting for it, because people, and there's a lot of confusion, and people don't go to a lot of meetings. Some people only go to one financial meeting in their lifetime, and they come and they don't understand, because I talked to people in the audience, and they said, well, they said if we don't vote, it's a no vote, and other people don't think that's true. And I talked to the moderator after the meeting, and there's been confusion from what they said and what they told us at previous meetings for other, in fact, when the meeting for the car tax, there was a lot of confusion that night about, we were leaving early, and they said, well, if you leave, it's a no vote. You know, you vote no. And then other people said, no, you have to vote. So, you know, people were very confused, so I think this is very helpful, and it's gonna make things a lot better for everybody.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Move on to the next one, Article 11, Treasurer's Department, Section 11.01, Appointment Qualifications, Organization, and Section 11.06, Compensation. Rationale, this change provides a 3-year contract for the treasurer beginning January 2017 and will provide more stability and continuity in the treasurer's department. Essentially the same as we just discussed with the public works director. The wording is essentially the same. Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone wish to speak in favor?
Can I just ask a question, Renee? Not, and this isn't specific to Kelly. It's just specific to any contract like this. If you hire someone, because we've had this happen in the past, and they are really great on paper, and then you find out they're really totally incompetent. We have this 3-year contract. We have to buy them out of that 3-year contract?
Well, it depends on what you, meaning, are you talking about, did they spec specific, did they lie to you about qualifications?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
Does
as,
this represent, if it's
no, I'm not
something
saying a
like
legal thing like that. I'm saying you just find that they're just not.
That's what references are about, and so you really need to be careful and actually check references or have some demonstration of their work when you hire someone.
But we would have to buy them out of the contract.
If there's no, if there's no, misrepresentation or out and out lie, et cetera, it would be the hiring, the employer's duty to vet that person. You let them sign that contract and you find out they're no good, unless it rises to the level of criminal negligence or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make a.
No, I mean, we had situations in the town hall in
Yeah.
past years where there was a lot of, I'll just say in the town clerk's position, there was,
But see,
it created a really
here's the
hostile
difference,
environment.
here's the difference. We are talking about a treasurer.
No, I know. I'm
Yeah,
just
so
saying.
The question unfortunately doesn't belong in this venue, but when you're talking about a treasurer, she, like I, has standards much higher than any contract with this town.
Right.
So my duty is to the court. Her duty is to her general accounting standards, to her, all of her standards, and then to go to the general.
Yep. Yeah,
so
I'm not.
If she breaches that, then you would probably have cause.
Right.
But this is why those type of jobs, it's a professional job.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about Kelly.
Right, but
Not at all. Actually, I just had a.
Not just her, the position of treasurer has
Right.
standards.
Right.
Like I have standards. So the contract isn't necessarily the issue sometimes. If they're breaching standards, then yeah, you could get out of the contract.
Okay.
That's why it's kind of safe, I think, to make a contract with a professional, because they have standards. If they breach those standards, yeah, you can get out of it.
Anyone to speak in favor?
I'll speak in favor.
You probably already got it.
The past experience of a council with a treasurer, the onus falls on the council, what the solicitor's already said, to hire someone who properly can and does the job. So if you hire someone and then you find out you're no good, obviously the council didn't do the proper work to get a person to do the job. And you give contracts to encourage qualified people to take your jobs because they want protections in their jobs. They don't wanna be hired, if Kelly died tomorrow. They don't wanna be hired, no, let's think of this. No, it's not, oh, wait, come on. If the treasurer, not Kelly, died tomorrow, you would try and hire a treasurer for 6 months, knowing that there could be another council sitting there who would want to get rid of them and hire their own person. You need contracts to protect professional people.
If you hit the lottery tomorrow.
You're still working.
That I agree.
That the treasurer should have a contract. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Any other comments or questions?
I guess I would point out, to your point, it does also allow for removal on violation of any provision.
It wasn't like, my question was if somebody, it's not about their job performance. I'm talking about someone who creates a hostile work environment or just makes the whole town hall a miserable place and you're stuck with them for 3 years. That was my question. Do we then, if it's so hostile we need to get rid of them, we have to buy out the rest of the contract? That was the kind of situation I was referring to. The legal, I get the legal part of it.
John's looking at me, it's not me.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's nobody.
This is getting very personal. Hostile work environment.
Okay, the next one, Article 14, General Provisions, Section 14.02B and Section 14.02A, a new section, Cooperative Purchasing. These changes will align this section of the charter with the current state law. There actually are significant changes in yellow. I'm not going to go through them unless there's specific questions. You can all see them. It's my understanding that the Charter Commission reviewed state law and made our charter reflect that. Does anyone have any questions on any of these? Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Mrs. Carey, I see you.
No.
No.
Just waving?
Anyone like to speak in favor? Any questions or comments at all? Okay. So we will move on. These last two issues that you see are not specifically ballot items, but they are housekeeping issues that would change contingent upon the adoption of one of the others that we already discussed. So the building and zoning official will be deleting the wording in zoning board alternate member. So rationale, the zoning board alternate member is not mentioned in Article 7, Section 6.07 in the charter. The zoning board alternate members are addressed in Article 9, Section 1.04, so it's stray and should be there. Questions, comments on this? In favor? Any opposition? Okay. And the last housekeeping issue, Article 3, moderator, Section 3.03, financial town meeting. This would change if the town moderator, financial town meeting section previously discussed change, to add the words "and Article 10, Section 10.02 herein." So to put it within the moderator's description, compulsion to follow the new voting rules that we previously discussed. Any questions on this? Anyone wish to speak in favor?
I will just say it's necessary to tie it up together to show that if we pass the first one, that it's intended to do what it's intended to do and not have any loophole in it. We need this.
Any other comments at all? Mr. Savasio?
Yeah, I want to again, compliment, because there's different people here, Jane Alexander and the solicitor.
I wish I were.
Close enough. Jane Christopher and the solicitor, Amold. The revisions done by Jane and the work done by the solicitor, I honestly don't have any idea how many times we met, but we met constantly for, Bobby, how many months? 8 months?
8 months.
8 months, okay? And every time they were there, they did all the revisions, they did all the legal work, and the rest of us just went and talked a little bit. So I think that they deserve a round of applause for that. Jane Alexander, close enough. Who is Jane Alexander?
She's an actress.
Oh, hey, you're famous.
Yes. That's 3 times in 1 week.
Uh-oh.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions about anything we've covered regarding the Charter Review Commission's recommendations? If not, I will close the public hearing on the Charter Review Commission recommendations. So I actually wanted to thank everyone who was on the commission, Mr. Savasio, who was the chair, Bob DiPaolo, Linda Walden, Jane Christopher, Lynn Ryder, and Patrick Eden all served as members of the Charter Commission. Thank you all, appreciate your work and your diligence.
And John, members of the council came to numerous meetings, so there was lots of participation at all levels. So some of those people deserve credit too. How's that?
Okay, so I'd like to do a second public hearing, and then the council can address which of these would like to go on the ballot, if we are ready to do that this evening. But I'm going to open our second public hearing this evening on the planning board recommendation for a charter amendment. The planning board is recommending a change to Article 10, Financial Procedures, Section 10.10, Capital Reserve Fund. Okay, so do we have that in that package? Everyone has that? Attached.
No, it's not attached. I think it was in your.
It was
not
not previous.
Earlier package.
And we were asked to bring it.
So this, I was looking through my packet, I saw this letter,
Yes, we have.
but I'm not sure if they actually saw a text
Mr.
change,
Lewis?
or if it's just a percentage change.
There was.
There is a copy, we had formatted it as the Charter Review Commission. Unfortunately, there aren't copies available tonight, but we had formatted to
Look like
coincide with
They
the
have,
same.
you have, yes.
There are not copies available tonight.
We
is that
never
what you
received
said?
that.
Yes,
Yeah, I looked through my packet.
we have the letter.
We have the letter.
But
No, it was never in our previous packet.
in essence, though, it's just the 2 to 4 of that whole section 10.10. It's just instead of 2%, it's 4%.
So what the planning board is recommending in that section, Article 10, Financial Procedures, Section 10.10, Capital Reserve Fund, the current wording in that portion of the charter requires the town to set aside 2% of the overall budget to put into the capital budget, the capital fund. The planning board is recommending that we increase that from 2% to 4%. So 4% per year of the overall budget would be required to be put into the capital fund. Would you like to read the letter that way? Sure, I can read the letter. It's 2.5 pages.
Can't you just surmise, like, Gordon, you really wanted to read the whole thing?
To Foster Town Council, the capital funds transfer. The planning board is concerned about the options which will be available to the citizens of Foster on the November ballot. Currently, the town charter calls for the transfer of funds to the capital fund based on 2% of the town's operating budget. We understand that the Charter Review Commission has voted not to recommend an increase in the mandated percent transfer. the planning board would strongly recommend that citizens have an opportunity to vote to increase that amount. From 2007 to the present, the town's capital reserve fund has plummeted from more than $1 million to about $200,000, a precipitous and dangerous decline due to the underfunding of the fund balance. Over the past 10 years, the planning board recommendations for capital projects have often exceeded the 2% mandate. Even so, the planning board has had to choose between critically needed items, leaving serious needs unmet. Every time we choose between two pieces of equipment, it means deferring the purchase of a necessary item until the following year and the following year's capital budget. We are approaching a crisis in which we can no longer meet the fundamental needs of the infrastructure of the town. The ambulance corps, fire departments, police department, and DPW receive some of their funding from donations, and they've worked tirelessly to find grants and other help. They have never been excessive in their requests, and yet we have had to deny these hardworking people, many volunteering their time, the equipment and conditions they need to keep us safe. To spotlight the police department, we all know it is located in an historic building that may be quaint, but is woefully unsuitable for its function. The roads, and especially the bridges, have deteriorated to such an extent that they can no longer be repaired, and now the town faces the much larger expense of replacing them. We have not mentioned the schools, the communication systems for the town, the recreation facilities, and the libraries, just to remind ourselves that the list goes on and on. When we inherited the responsibility for maintaining the town and its infrastructure, it was not perfect, but not terrible. Over the past 20 years, we have allowed this heritage to deteriorate. It is shameful. We have not fulfilled our responsibility to the town and to future generations to maintain our town in a manner of which we can be proud. We sincerely hope that the town council will decide to reverse this lamentable situation. We are recommending that the town council give the citizens of the town the opportunity to change the town charter from an allocation of 2% to the allocation 4% of the operating budget to the capital fund. Ensuing years will demonstrate if even this amount is adequate. If action is not taken in this regard, who will be answerable for the consequences? On behalf of the Boston Planning Board, Joseph Carey, Chair. So that is their recommendation. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Mr. Savasi.
Yeah, first of all, this ties the hands of the council of how to distribute the monies they collect in revenues. Second of all, I'm going to go back historically. When I was on the planning board 20 years ago, I think, I pointed out to the members of the planning board, some who are still there, that this crisis was coming. And the planning board refused to assess the financial needs of the community. About 15, and they say they don't operate as a financial board. We had the last charter review committee, the last planning committee had multiple zones all set, and it took them another 10 or 15 years to come up with a comprehensive plan that whether it's done or not, I don't care. This group operates as a board to spend money, to make assessments. They should not be doing that. They're not qualified to do that. We need a financial board to make long-range plans to assess bridges, roads, police department. Everything comes up as a crisis to this community versus a plan. When I was on the planning board, I drew a little chart like this. Every time on this side, you went up 2% in taxes. On this side, you needed to add 2% in revenue. Just a little triangle. And I got poo-pooed, and eventually I got thrown off to the board. They have now created the very thing that I told them they were going to do. First of all, the board, the council, should be working to develop, and John, you're doing that, and that's what that meeting was about the other night, the taxation cessation, all right? Years we should have taken in industry to avert this crisis. And I'll tell you truthfully, not my opinion, this is fact. The planning board has operated against solving the financial crisis that was coming, and now they're complaining that you have a financial crisis. All right? This council, not the planning board, or the planning board, you don't need light manufacturing. You need 200 acres in 3 spots for warehousing. You need to bring in new revenues to support. They're absolutely right in their assessment that we do not have enough money to support all our capital needs. But the other night at, the meeting was held the other night about the taxation, I pointed out, our revenues do not meet our expenses, nor our future expenses. The big problem is revenues. And just shifting 2% from this pocket to this pocket does not solve your revenue crisis. This is a revenue crisis. And once you move it there, you can't get it back. And there's another piece to this too. Nobody has assessed, and Gordon and I have talked about this, and I get killed when I say this, nobody's assessed if you need all the fire trucks you have in town. But we do assess how to buy them. So the council has given away their responsibilities of that assessment to the engineering board. The planning board is not a financial board. They're an assessment of funds, a recommendation of funds to the council. All right? And none of that should take place. There should be a financial board with Kelly making long-term projections and decisions about the need for revenue. Thank you. And the Charter Review Committee flatly denied this.
No. You approved it first. We voted, denied it. I was at that meeting.
Well, we denied it in the end, okay?
There was spirited discussion.
There was spirited
Not being
discussion.
recommended. Okay.
Right.
Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? Anyone wish to speak in favor? Mrs. Rogers.
Back when I was on the council from '04 to '06, we had somewhere around $3 million in the capital reserve fund. So in like 10 to 12 years, we're down to 200. Everything's gotten more expensive. Roads have gotten more expensive to pave. Fire trucks, ambulances, everything has gotten a lot more expensive. But our account has never grown. We haven't contributed anything to it. I disagree with Ron. We've talked about this before. I think of all of the things before you tonight, all of these proposed amendments, this should be number 1. I think this is the most important thing for Foster, to be able to preserve all of the things that we need. Otherwise, we're going to be going out to bond. I think out of all of them, this should be your number 1 priority.
Mr. Walden?
I believe I heard the chairman of the Charter Review say that this was a financial imperative. Yes, it is. I think it was negligent of the Charter Review Commission not to put it forward when they could increase someone's term of office in 4 years, but not address the serious financial nature of the town with this. And as far as planning, we submit a 5 to 20 year plan, the engineering board does, every year, so people know what's coming. There are no surprises. This has been a funding issue for a long time, and it needs to be addressed. I can agree with Heidi Moore. This is the break-even point. It's now, or what are you going to do? Mr. Savazio's unhappy with spending 2/3 of the tax money on the school. He wants to spend it all. He wants no one else to have it either.
That's not.
So, please put this at the top of your list, speaking for the emergency services.
Kelly?
The amendment to the charter would basically mandate that you have to have an additional maybe 0.75% from what we're doing currently. And it would also prevent a future council from utilizing the extra money that you've put in there now to balance your budget. So that's one major thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say is that currently you're funding capital almost on a pay-as-you-go basis. The reason you need the extra money is because all of your withdrawals from the capital fund are greater than what we put in, and we're down to a $200,000 fund balance. If we didn't put additional money in for 2017, I believe we would have had a deficit in the fund. It was pretty much a requirement that you added more money, which in other terms means that you are paid as you go. So we ask people to put in a 5-year plan. They do, but if you're not going to plan ahead, then what would be the purpose of the 5-year plan? We're basically funding your current needs. So a 5-year plan would mean that if you wanted a $100,000 withdrawal or payment in 5 years, you would have $20,000 each year build up in your fund balance, so that in the end of the 5 years, you have that full $100,000. That's how the fund's supposed to operate. It wasn't operated, it didn't operate that way for years, and that's part of the problem. I don't think there was any kind of true forecasting, which does come into the financial part of this whole thing. There was no true forecasting, but since we've been here, I've been here, and especially with Juliana's help, we've really tried to put everybody on that path. The fact of the matter is you just don't have that money in there, and we literally are paying as you go. Whatever we're putting in, we're taking out. So you're not going to be able to, unless you draw that account down to zero, plan for 5 years out. There's no way.
Mr. Lewis,
Are you
may I address?
in favor or in opposition?
I put it forward. I was the person who requested that we do go up to 4%.
Just wanted to clarify.
I've been saying, since actually it was one of the very first things that I noticed when I first got here, was the huge depletion of that account. And I anticipated that if you kept spending as you were, that we would be in a deficit exactly as you are in the year that you are. In response to that, what happened was, I think you had a year or two that they spent exactly what we put in. The problem with that is your costs are greater, so all of the repairs and maintenance and the work that should have taken place didn't occur, and then all of your machinery failed at the same time, and you had some major problems that you had to address. So it really isn't a help if you only fund capital in the amount that you put in, if that's really not what your capital needs are. So there was some effort to correct that, but your capital needs are greater than what you're putting in the calculation.
Mr. Sadowski?
Listen, I'm gonna say this again. This is a matter of revenue, okay? Kelly, 2 times a Democratic council brought forth a 0 budget. If they had brought forth 2% and taken the whole 2% and put it in capital, there would be no deficit. One time, the Republican council had a 0 budget. They could have charged 2% and brought that money forward. This is, look, you can move 2% over, it still isn't enough money. Correct? Okay? You can move 2 to 4, it is not enough money. You need to address, the reason I'm against this, I want somebody in this town to address the revenue side of the budget. We don't. We address the deficit side, the spending side. This only kicks the can down the road again to not deal with the revenue side of the budget. The only revenue you have is from the taxpayers. Your meeting the other night with the elderly, the more people that go on the elderly disabled tax freeze, the more you shift the burden of the taxes to the young people in this community. You need a revenue source which no council, no planning board, nobody has dealt with. Kelly is not incorrect of 2 to 4, but 4 is not going to do it. Because there's going to be other expenses that are not projected and are not thought of at this time. So somebody has to deal with the revenue side. Kelly actually, she does this, she tries, but there actually needs to be a... No.
Before she dies.
Harry, you're out of order.
I was just gonna call for it.
You know, Gloucester has a financial board. They're the first people to meet with everybody, not the planning board. And the financial board looks at long-term projections. Kelly does that by herself. So, do it, back this. But 2% isn't enough, and you still haven't solved your revenue problem.
Can I speak in favor and rebut some of these comments?
Mr. Carey, yes?
First of all, there are procedures that the planning board's put in place to try to remedy a lot of problems in the past with the capital budget, as far as longer outlooks and more realistic projections for future needs, and taking into account the cost of products and things, equipment in the future. Also, you know, a lot of times we run into a lot of problems with, as far as the school, over the last couple of years, had trouble with their heating system. Something that wasn't forecast in the future as a need. So obviously it's something we had to address. So you have over $100,000 going to the school to get the heating system repaired as an emergency. Well, that's $100,000 that was supposed to go to the purchase of a fire truck that we had to decide now, who aren't we gonna fund this year? We've been real lucky with the council in the last few years that when we have asked for more than 2%, and they've been willing to put extra money into capital. The problem is if we need these in the future and there's a council up there that says, no, we're not gonna fund this, and you only fund the 2%, and we don't have the fund balance to cover it, the roads aren't gonna get fixed, the bridges aren't gonna get fixed. And the fire trucks are gonna break down on the way to the fire, and the plow trucks are already in terrible shape, and we can't seem to catch up, and we're way behind already, and it's just getting worse and worse. And we really have to do something to make sure there's money available. We should have a fund balance of at least $800,000, and we haven't been near that amount. We're putting in $250,000, $280,000 a year, I believe.
400 and something.
No,
Okay.
At 2%, it's about 266.
266, and we're spending between $400,000 and $600,000 a year on capital. So, and we're not even addressing all of the things that we need. We're basically taking the stuff that's urgent and putting them at the top. And, you know, all that other stuff is just getting worse and worse. So we really have to make sure there's money available and try to get this fund balance back up to a respectable number again.
Anyone else in favor?
Rick Sparks.
Rick Sparks, yes, sir.
I can't really add anything to what Joe said, but I just wanted to say that I agree with him 100%. It's clear that the fund is not funded as it should be. I think the people of the town should have a chance to vote on it.
Anyone else? Responding to you?
Again, I don't have a lot more to say, but I think that the funding of the capital budget should be considered on its merits, irrespective of any revenue issues. It is a different, it needs to be addressed anyway.
So you can spend more than you take in?
No.
Oh.
It just needs to be addressed because, you know, even if, because it's not, obviously it ends up being tied to the revenues, but it's, you know, it's a function of, you know, what the tax is also, so it needs, we haven't had enough money. No matter what you do, even if you took out things that you consider extraneous, we still haven't had enough money. So it's, we've always, for the last, 3 years, we've had to put in requests for additional funding. It just can't continue this way because there's no way, it's not, you can't plan. The departments can't plan. let alone us, but the departments themselves can't plan.
Anyone else? Any final comments at all about this item? Okay, I will close the public hearing on the planning board recommendations for charter. Okay, that brings these back to the council. The council has to decide
Don't work on this.
which, if any, or all, or some of these proposals will get forwarded to the November ballot for consideration by the voters of the town.
For discussion purposes,
Yes?
I would propose that we do forward all of the Charter Revision Committee's report and the planning board's recommendation.
Is that a motion? 'Cause
That is a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. The motion is to forward every charter amendment that we discussed this evening made by the Charter Review Commission and the planning board to be put on the November ballot.
Yes.
Made and seconded. Okay, discussion.
Yes. So, if I heard correctly from the Charter Revision, and I'm not sure if Mr. Savazio can answer the question or not, they limited the number that they were putting forward because they felt that it would be, people would just vote no because there were too many. Am I correct in that?
We tried to limit the number we put forward.
So
That was not why this was particularly cut.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying, was 8 your magic number?
No, I don't believe, Bob.
No, we just kept that in mind.
You kept that, you want, okay,
It was
thank
not
you,
our number.
because then I was gonna prioritize.
Well, I would like to add, I mean, I was keeping tally of all of them. And two that were brought up by far that led public hearing that wanted it in favor was the ballot issue and the 2 to 4%, 2 going to 4% on the capital. Those by far went to the front of wanting that to be put on the ballot. So if we were gonna prioritize, I think it's clear tonight by the public hearing that those two would be on the list.
Well, and I want to say not just this public hearing, but
Yes.
what I'm hearing out there. Those are the two most that I've had discussions about.
So the motion is to move everything forward to the ballot. Any further discussion? Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'd like to say, I think the 3-year contracts for the 2 positions that were mentioned are important to get the qualified people in those places. And we are fortunate that we have Kelly and we have Sophia. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that forward.
Well, I would recommend all of them.
I want them all to.
I'm just not sure, I was just wondering what the feeling is if we do put all of them forward. What would people, well, not necessarily with order, but would people even, or would they just all say, no, forget it, we're coming to Europe?
I think some people just might bypass them completely and
Yeah.
not do the time of doing that. I think it's gonna be a pointed effort on people that are involved that are specifically going to vote for certain things. I think, you know, like a lot of people, when you have the state issues with all the bonds, some people don't even deal with that.
Yeah.
I think that's what's gonna happen here, and I think it happens normally.
I think that's a chance we want to see, but I think we have to do our part and get the information out there.
Are you,
I have my opinions on them, and I'll be voting specifically that way on the ballot, but I do think they all deserve merit
I do.
to be put on the ballot to be decided. I don't think there's 15 or 20 that would be a large amount. I don't think between 6 and 8 or 9 it's gonna make a big difference. So I don't think to cut enough out of it to make it easy, I think we would be cutting too many, so I think it's a clear cut to just put it forward and we'll vote on how, let them vote on how they want.
Mrs. Morrell?
I agree, I think they should all be put forward, because if you put all of them forward, or you put just 3 forward, if they're all gonna just put no, they're gonna do it anyway, whether you have all of them. At least give us a chance to vote on every one of them. Because I think they're all very important, that's on that list.
Would we be the ones that prioritize how they go on the ballot?
That was
How
my
does that
question.
work? Or does the state say, here we
How
go?
does that work?
Do you know?
No, I don't know that, you may be able to submit, it's their rules. You may be able to submit what we want first, but I do think if you're doing them in the fashion that we looked at them in, at least somebody who does want to look at this can go with a charter and, you
Yeah, it's a
know,
numerical
makes
order.
some
Yeah.
sense on how it's presented. I think if you start putting
Well,
them
that's,
all over the lot, then,
I wanted to make sure we had control over it,
yeah.
not the state.
So
The
state always has-
So if that's the case, the planning board recommendation, the Article 10, I would move up on the list, leave it in the appropriate spot. on the
Right.
list.
Jane, have they spoken to you about that?
They've just given me a deadline and some basic rules that aren't terribly specific yet, but, you know, send us what you have and we'll help you edit it.
Can we ask them?
Yes.
Can we ask them if we could put it in, if the council could put it in the way they want it prioritized?
Sure.
I think,
I don't know if we should
I
do
think
that.
we just discussed, what I heard is to leave it in numerical order as per the charter.
It's clean.
It's
Oh,
clean, it's unbiased, it's,
I'm sorry, I missed that.
and anyone who wanted to reference the charter could sit there and go through the ballots in the same order as the charter.
So then the planning board's recommendation is Article 10,
Would
so it
move up.
would be moved up into that.
Right.
Okay.
If that's, everyone consents.
Yeah, I mean, it would fall in place.
That would make sense. That would be unbiased on our part.
Would the ballot show specifically the changes over the existing language?
No, I think the way it happened in 2012, because you had several amendments on the ballot that year when I first came here, and it really, the question is, should the foster home rule charter be changed to, you know, for article such and so, to state the following, and you put the following, but Joe is not a comparison.
So we
So I
could
think
get
that's
something like this.
That is something you would have to send out, but what you did in 2012 was send out to every resident a mailer explaining what the amendment changes were.
It's too bad it couldn't be presented as it is here.
Can't we,
Can you that day at the election?
I
Well,
like
can
to
you
put
mail
a
it?
board up. I have always suggested on the way in, when people are
Yes,
waiting in
yeah.
line, they're gonna wait in line for the, you know, put a board up and put it out, every page out, so that while they're waiting in line, at the very least, they can look.
Do you think it might be advisable to do for the Foster Home Journal, each month we put in, here's what's gonna be the charter change, so here's a couple of them. We might have to do 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
Couldn't you put it on the
To get
website?
them in on time, but
But I
at least.
believe my deadline to the Secretary of State is like August 8th or something.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying to get this information
Oh,
out
I see what you're saying.
to the
Up through
people.
November.
So, right, so each month we put in a couple of them.
September, October, November, 4 months.
Yeah, so we can split it up and put them in and what the proposed, and this is presented in this format.
Yes.
You have this
Yes.
one here in this format.
Yes.
So,
Jane does.
so that could be something if
It
you.
was in the box that I finally found in Patty's office at 4
Was
o'clock.
holding it hostage and you didn't pay your, you didn't pay me for that. Is it, which way, is it better to put it in the Foster Home Journal or just do a mailing?
I think we would need to do a mailing. Anything you see in July or August.
Yeah, I mean, I know I wouldn't pay attention to it in July or August, I'll be honest.
Well, I don't think there's anything that precludes us from doing both. We could put it in the Foster Home Journal and.
And I think a mailing would be good, and then you just have people there handing it out at the day of the election too, because anything I get in this hand with day of the election goes in the circular file as I walk in.
If you put voter info on it, even if they get it early, you're gonna put it where you know, oh, that's when I go vote, I put it with my voting information.
And why not also put it on the town webpage?
Yes.
And make also a note on a regular basis in the Foster Journal that this one is also available on the Foster webpage. And most people have today have a computer or some sort of electronic device to look things up like this. I would say 70 or 80% of the population by now.
Mrs. Sabathia?
Yeah, there's two issues. One is, later on, as the negativity comes out against this thing, the issue's gonna be is 3-year contracts tie the hands of the council. But voting for 2% more into the capital doesn't tie, it's an inconsistency in thought. So as you hear, this ties the hands of the council. Remember that moving 2 into 4, I'm not against it, it's inconsistent thought, okay? The second thing is, I operated as the Charter Review Committee Chair, not as anything that had to do with the school committee. And I really resent Tom's position on that, and I'll remind everyone that both the Payne School and the region have had 5-0 budgets during my tenure, all right? So I don't operate for my team and against the other team, okay? The Charter Review Committee did a great job for the community.
Okay. So the motion on the table is to move everything forward to the November ballot in numerical order as they appear in the charter. Is there any final discussion from the council?
I would just add to the ballots, maybe we could see if the additional language could maybe be underlined if the issue is that they can't show it in color. Just because again, if people are reading it, just to highlight specifically what's changing.
Good point.
Okay. You ready to vote? All those in favor of moving all of these recommendations from the Charter Review Commission and the Planning Board to the November ballot, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for your work. Charter Review Commission, Planning Board, everyone who's involved, appreciate your time and your efforts. Future agenda items.
You got that award recreation ball.
Right, we've got a few things, the recreation bid award, a couple of reports. The 4 things that are still standing, 3 things that are still standing there, I think. Community yard sales, yes. I can't, actually, I've got to ask for some quiet, please, in the back, so we can just finish up, we're just about wrapping up.
You have Swamp Meadow too.
Is there anything else for future
Yes.
agenda items?
Swamp Meadow.
Mr. Giovanni requested, so we have that. And I'd like to have some discussion about unmaintained roads. And as a result of last night's meeting, bridges that are being worked on. Maybe we need clarification because we all seem to be somewhat confused about comments that were made last night. Or maybe if we're all on the same page.
Yeah, he was incorrect when he said.
Well, I'd like to have some discussion about what bridges are being worked on. I seem to recall some of them.
There's a contract with the state, and the number of bridges that they're working on. And those are the only ones at this point. The town is not, other than Johnson Road, Bridge Culvert, it's not a tax base beneath Bridge Road. It's the state of Johnson Road.
Well, then, Mr. Giovanni, and unmaintained roads, and I will talk to Mr. Cardillo about the bridges that are being worked on.
He can give you a copy of that.
Thank you. I do know we have a copy of it somewhere in the envelopes.
Okay, question for the solicitor before we go. Town council every year decides on a Citizen of the Year award to give at Old Home Days. It's not something we can do in public. Is it something we can go into executive session?
Yes, yep, under discussion about persons, because everybody thinks it's only personnel, but the exception is persons, not just personnel. So it would be the exception that we use for personnel also. If it's persons, then it would be personal information, character and fitness for an award in this case.
Okay, so if there are no more future agenda items, we'll go into a very quick executive session and see if we can